She came in by helicopter along with the daily resupply shipment out of July, a tall, big-boned blonde. At best, Rat said, she was 17 years old, fresh out of Cleveland Heights Senior High. She had long white legs and blue eyes and a complexion like strawberry ice cream. Very friendly, too. At the helipad that morning, Mark Fossey grinned and put his arm around her and said, "Guys, this is Marianne."
Welcome to episode 43 of A Good Read. The excerpt you just heard was taken from a chapter of The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. The chapter we will be focusing on today is called The Sweetheart of the Song Bong. It's very interesting for a lot of reasons, actually. I feel like it has a good story on the surface, as well as a lot of symbolism and highlights a lot of the story's themes when you dig a little deeper.
Yes, Isaiah, I agree. The chapter focuses on a story told by the character Rat Kiley about a girl named Marianne Bell, the fresh out of high school girlfriend of the soldier Mark Fossey. Fossey actually ships Marianne out to the middle of Vietnam with him. For a character who is only found in one chapter of the book, Marianne plays a crucial role in developing one of the work's most prevalent themes, the idea that nothing comes out of Vietnam unchanged.
Stay with us for our analysis of the role this entertaining and thought-provoking chapter plays in the development of the chapter's themes.
If you're just now joining us on today's podcast, we are talking about the chapter Sweetheart of the Song Bong in O'Brien's classic The Things They Carried. In this act, we will be discussing the role Marianne Bell plays in the development of one of O'Brien's main themes throughout the story, the psychological effect Vietnam had on the people that were stationed there.
Arguably, Marianne's most important characteristic is how extremely dynamic of a character she is. This chapter is only 25 pages long, and in those 25 pages she undergoes almost a complete transformation. Marianne is introduced into this story on page 89, where she is flown into Vietnam aboard a helicopter wearing what Rat Kiley describes as a sexy pink sweater, a plastic cosmetics bag, and culottes. O'Brien uses visual imagery to describe her, saying she had long white legs and blue eyes and a complexion like strawberry ice cream. Right off the bat, we are getting a very strong sense that Marianne is very feminine, very innocent, the opposite of everything this war was.
Even her name is feminine. I mean, Marianne Bell. Does that not just sound girly to you?
Right. O'Brien has set up a beautiful parallel for his readers, making Marianne the hyperbolized example of the naive civilian who has never experienced the horrors of war. This starting point of Marianne's character is crucial for a reader to both notice and remember through the rest of the chapter, as O'Brien uses her dynamic to create more parallels later on.
It doesn't take very long for Marianne Bell's girly characteristics to begin to wear away due to the war. Rat Kiley explains how she became very interested in the land itself and the people. She couldn't get enough of it. She begs Mark Fossey, her boyfriend, to take her to see the villages, then falls in love with the simplicity of the village life, getting a buzz off the raw reality of it all.
I think it is important to bring up, since we are talking about the psychology of Marianne's dynamic change, that O'Brien uses diction related to drugs to describe the war for Marianne. He talks about the adrenaline buzz that went with the job, that quick, hot rush in your veins when the choppers settled down and you had to do things fast and right. Rush in your veins connotes drugs like heroin, which is often injected into the bloodstream. This drug is also associated with the same adrenaline buzz that O'Brien mentioned. This specific use of diction tells the reader that Marianne is developing an addiction to the war.
At this point, we asked ourselves, why is Marianne so addicted to this war? It seems like war shouldn't be so addictive. This is where a quote from Marianne towards the end of the chapter really develops this idea. She tells Mark Fossey after her outing with the Green Berets, "When I'm out there at night, I feel close to my own body. I can feel my blood moving, my skin and my fingernails, everything. It's like I'm full of electricity and I'm glowing in the dark. I'm on fire almost. I'm burning away into nothing. But it doesn't matter because I know exactly who I am. You can't feel like that anywhere else." This quote reveals two important aspects of Marianne's addiction. First, it highlights why she can't seem to get enough of this war. The closer she is to death, the more alive she feels. Civilian life doesn't bring you this close to death like war does. This ties into the next point she makes when she says, "You can't feel like that anywhere else." The addiction is to this war, because war regularly puts you so close to death. Civilian life does not provide people with the same thrill of danger that war does.
You can start to see the effects of Marianne's addiction in her behavior as she starts to fall into the habit of the bush. She stops using cosmetics and hygiene becomes secondary to everything else. Next, she learns how to use the weapons, helps patch up wounded soldiers, and eventually goes out at night on ambush.
This is where O'Brien once again uses specific diction to create a parallel between Marianne and Vietnam. This time, his diction is jungle-related, with O'Brien writing, after Marianne comes back from the ambush, her eyes seem to shine in the dark, drawing a parallel to jungle cat-like predators. He then writes that her eyes shone jungle green. Later he writes that Fosse heard Marianne's voice from the Green Beret tent, sing chanting, but the lyrics seem to be in a foreign tongue, once again referencing the foreign culture of Vietnam. This specific Vietnam-related diction in relation to Marianne reinforces the idea that Vietnam is swallowing up Marianne, that she is becoming a part of Vietnam itself.
In effect, Vietnam is literally stripping away her humanity. It is breaking down the walls that civilian life builds between humans and nature, and Marianne is slipping through the cracks of this breach.
Finally, O'Brien ties up the main theme of this chapter with this expression in reference to Marianne's change. 17 years old, just a child, blonde and innocent, but then weren't they, the soldiers, all? To me, this speaks volumes. Here, O'Brien is specifically anchoring Marianne's dynamic change to all of the soldiers of Vietnam. He's saying that all the soldiers were innocent and naive before Vietnam, and therefore, Vietnam changed each and every soldier by stripping away their humanity like it did to Marianne Bell.
In this story, O'Brien takes us on an emotional journey, making us feel surprise and a lack of control as we watch Marianne unravel before our eyes. He also applies expert use of specific diction and parallels to emphasize the main theme of this chapter, that no one leaves Vietnam unchanged. I think that O'Brien is heating up the truth here, just as Rat Kiley did, in order to make us feel perhaps what he did about the changes he saw in himself and in the soldiers around him during the Vietnam War. And this work is especially important because it remains relevant today. Wars continue to exist, and countries are still sending their young men and women to places that have a high chance of changing them forever.
This has been a good read with Isaiah Challen, Lily Payne, and Katharine Gruber. Make sure to tune in next week when we interview veterans who read O'Brien's The Things They Carried. You won't want to miss it.